What's up, everyone? Thralls of Metal back again. I am Shredlord.
Necrotic Nick.
And we are here to give you another excellent album review. This time, we bring you the Halo Effect's second album, March of the Unheard.
Finally getting down to some new releases, and honestly, I was pretty hyped about this one. This comes out on the 10th of January on Nuclear Blast Records. This band formed in 2019 in Sweden, and you could definitely call them a supergroup, though it's kind of unique in the sense that the supergroup has one unifying theme. Every member of this band is a former In Flames member. And honestly, all these In Flames cast-offs kind of make better In Flames music than In Flames does. Again, this is their second full length. I actually went over their debut, Days of the Lost. I thought it was a pretty solid album. This band was formed by former In Flames guitarist Nicholas Englund. He actually formed this band almost immediately after he left In Flames, and then went around casting a whole crew of ex-In Flames guys. We have Michael Stahn from Dark Tranquillity and a number of other projects on vocals, which he was a one-time vocalist for this band. Peter Iwers, former bassist of In Flames. Daniel Svensson, longtime drummer for In Flames for a long period of time before he also left. And one Jesper Stromblad, who at one point I would say was probably like the key writer for a lot of In Flames early stuff, where I absolutely just still come back to because I think his songwriting was absolutely fantastic. And probably don't need to tell you that this is melodic death metal.
Yeah, this is I wouldn't call it a throwback, but it takes me back. This is a modern approach on these boys' old style.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of said it about the first one when I did the review, that this doesn't remind me necessarily of like early 90s melodic death metal, like not so much like early In Flames or early At the Gates or, stuff like that. It reminds me more of like kind of that period, that tipping point where melodeath really started to catch fire kind of outside of like the whole Swedish scene. Like, I would say like late 90s to early 2000s. And the band executes that sound particularly well, and I'll honestly say I kind of like this one a little bit more than the debut. This one, of course, like I'm going to make a lot of comparisons to In Flames and a lot of comparisons to Dark Tranquillity, mainly because as soon as I hear Michael Stahn's very distinct growl, it's hard for me not to think of Dark Tranquillity. And when you hear all these clever riffs and harmonies and such, yeah, you're gonna think of In Flames. But here, I feel like the sound is tighter, it's more inspired, and more confident. Like, they're not trying to rewrite the playbook for, this period of melodic death metal, but they are executing it at a very high level, and I feel like this band is really kind of coming into their own, and I don't know, like they're comfortable in their own skin.
And especially when you compare it to their first album, it's like they put this album into overdrive. It's everything we liked about that first album, but they kicked everything up a notch, from the songwriting to the playing, production. Right from the rip, the first couple songs just really kick you right in the balls. It wastes no time getting into epic territory and just putting the pedal to the metal. The energy is there right from the get-go, and immediately once the guitars start coming in doing their harmonies, you just feel that fucking vibe of epicness coursing through your veins, like you're just ready to jump on a fucking horse with a sword and stab somebody in the fucking throat.
But with melody.
Yes, with melody.
With melody.
Not a sword.
Yeah, no.
Unless the sword's name was Melody.
Yeah. Conspire to Deceive, Detonate, Our Channel, Into Darkness. These three songs really kick off this album with a lot of energy. They're more up-tempo. There's a good mix, again, of like these brilliant melodic harmonies, which, believe me, we're going to be talking about that because the guitar work in here I think is fantastic. But also like energy, and I would say some aggression. Detonate in particular, those crawling harmonized riffs, those syncopated chugs, and it's kind of a faster D beat. It's honestly like Pinball Map Part 2. It's really, really similar, and to a point where we actually kind of pause it for a moment just to see like, all right, did Jesper write that one? Because maybe this is just like a little like, I'm just going to play it again, why not?
They have to know it sounds like that. They have to know.
It's so spot on, but I'm not complaining because that's like one of my favorite In Flames tracks. It's energetic, great chorus hook on it too. And for the most part, Stahn is doing like his just awesome growls on here, but it's amazing what kind of like hook he can generate with that. I'm not saying he doesn't sing, because eventually he does sing in here, but it's kind of an interesting thing that he kind of waits till like the end of the album to really start bringing out those kind of like more gothic croons.
I honestly didn't think a clean vocal was going to come across this entire album until very well into the second half did he start to open it up and give us some of those clean gothic-y style vocals. And it was a nice change of pace. Not that it needed to be there, but it was a pleasant surprise.
It was yet like another dynamic because, I mean, this, again, kind of has this one focal core that it definitely latches onto, but it kind of ventures out a little bit. And melodic death metal, it's a really interesting genre when you break it down, especially this mid-period where it really started to get more melodic. Like, if you were to strip out the harsher vocals on some of these tracks, and by extent, a good chunk of that period, of melodic death metal, and put in clean vocals that are very soaring, you could argue you might just have power metal there. The guitar harmonies are kind of similar, even though, you can almost kind of distinguish that Gothenburg style, like, melodic death metal harmony is like kind of folky in terms of the background. But, the very triumphant vibes, the very bright riffs, the huge soaring melodies that show up, especially on songs like Cruel Perception. I would say the title track for sure is very anthemic, but it's that balance between like the heavier moments and these bright, shining, huge moments where they just kind of let the guitars just soar. Again, it's sort of this interesting tightrope that this band walks, and, again, like by extent, this whole subset of death metal, but they do it really well, and this band is great at hooks.
Not only are they great at hooks when it comes to like your chorus hook, right? Where, the guitars are slamming, you've got your chords set up, the vocals on top, blah, blah, blah. But the melody guitars as well. The thing that impressed me the most about this album, it's biased as hell, but it's definitely the guitars. And the reason for it is they never stop going. Whether they are serving the song to just provide some heavy chunks underneath of just some palm muted power chord type stuff, or whether they're taking off into a melody or a harmony that's setting up the next section. It's just kind of non-stop. There's always something for the guitar to do, but never in an overdone way. Like, it never feels overdone. Everything is done tastefully, even though it's all over the place.
And this album, at least in terms of the song lengths, are very concise. So everything is kind of densely packed, but there's still room for all the melodies to breathe. Like, everything is just timed out really well. There isn't a track on here that goes over the 5-minute mark, but at the same time, like, all these songs, they feel complete. They feel like you kind of got like everything you were going to get out of that song. A good bridge melody, or, like some fun transitions with some just soaring Iron Maiden-ish like harmonies and such. But it doesn't labor on the melody so much to the point where it kind of loses steam. This is a pretty well-paced album. There's some good aggressive songs. Our Channel, To the Darkness, Burning Point. Burning Point. Absolutely riffy, gnarly song.
Yeah.
And possibly the only one that has like a legit standout solo. Now, it's kind of, it's kind of like the melodeath thing where it's mostly lead harmonies. Not really complaining. That's one of the things that I fell in love with initially about In Flames and Just Erase and Horacle. I love those lead melodies. But I kind of like hearing solos every now and then. And melodeath is, they're kind of iffy on solos. Like, I don't know. I feel like we can just have this soaring moment and then get right back to that heavy chorus. This one actually has what I would call a solo on it.
I definitely would call it a solo. While it does have some dual harmony moments, there's definitely lead playing. It's not just a strong melody. It's some shred in there too, man. He's moving and grooving, and that was kind of cool to hear. And it was nice to hear that he waited all the way till the end to kind of keep the flavor, so to speak. But then at the end say, you know what? I'm just going to do this shit anyway. I'm just going to do it, and there's nothing you guys can do to stop me because I'm a madman.
Forever Astray too, I think, is a little bit more like faster In Flames, maybe a little bit more like At the Gatesy. But I like that was the first one where we heard a clean vocal on. And it's a faster number. You kind of expect like, all right, this one's just going to be the aggressive one. It's got, the great melodic riffs, but they're a little bit on the thrashy side. Like, all right, it's a good energetic, bombastic song. And then all of a sudden we get a clean chorus. It's like, whoa.
Where did it come from?
The first one we've heard, and this is track 8. And it wasn't as though like clean vocals would feel out of place on a good chunk of this. Like, a lot of this is built on just good melodic hooks with like some solid riffy energy behind it. you could have put them on any of these, but I kind of like the fact they put it on like a faster, more aggressive number.
And not only did we get clean vocals in this, we also got some clean guitars and even some symphony instruments. There's tracks like Coda, which is the final track, has a lot of the strings and the beautiful clean guitar. I believe I heard a 12-string guitar. There is the precursor to the title track, which is this Curse of Silence. Once again, it was kind of quick, maybe a little unnecessary, but it was a cool little bit nonetheless to hear that contrast, I guess.
This Curse of Silence is interesting. It feels like this is like the side B of the vinyl, and this would kind of kick it off, and it's a hype track. Like, you know, it builds up to the title track, which the title track I think is a real standout in here. It's anthemic, it's a fist pumper, but it's still heavy. This Curse of Silence is, you know, like marching snares, like everything is building and building and building to the next track. It's okay, but I didn't feel like that track needed like a full-on hype man. Like, you know, the hype man's just out there like, are you guys ready? He's like, yes, we've been sitting here for a fucking while. Just bring out the band or the wrestler you're introing. We're ready. We're ready. We paid. We're ready. Bring them out.
The other themes that kind of constantly grazed my head because I'm a weirdo is themes of medieval times and such when I heard the cleans. I told this to Nick and we had to stop for a moment because we were laughing, but it's true. I definitely thought this. So in the song, Our Channel to the Darkness, it has this, once again, these acoustic kind of serenade thing. It's real pretty. And for some reason, though, it sounds very Renaissance-y, medieval. And I just imagine, like, the princess from Robin Hood Men in Tights in, like, a white dress just combing a pony. Just so beautiful. It's a midsummer's day here in the first fortnight of June, and things are beautiful.
Is she just wearing her hair over her boobs and the chastity belt?
No, she probably had the chastity belt on, but she was in a white gown. You know,
oh, okay. All right.
You know, some just, you know, modest lady brushing her pony. No big deal. Nothing weird or sexual about that.
God, I hope not.
I
hope that sexual energy was directed at the lady, too.
I'll talk to my therapist about that.
You should. That song, it kind of does like the good classic, like clean lead in, and all of a sudden you just take off into like a very aggressive track, too. Like, it's very fast paced. Again, killer harmonies. It's energetic, bombastic, a lot of things that I've been saying about a lot of these tracks. But I kind of like those lead-ins. Like, those are kind of fun because you get a lot of lead-ins in here where you get like the, you know, electronic synthy bits and such. And like, it's, you know, like kind of like a lot of later In Flames. So they kind of fell in love with like techno noises and such to kind of build up their songs. They don't overdo it though. And that kind of helps me like not just think this sounds like Dark Tranquillity, because with Dark Tranquillity, the synth is a main guy in the band and his composition on there adds to their music. Here, it's just like this little extra bit to kind of just like, you know, like give it a little extra atmosphere.
There were even some moments of weird nostalgia that go way back past melodeath. The track Between Directions. It has a really cool, interesting string section to start that song out. And then it almost has a Middle Eastern vibe. And it kind of felt to me like maybe it was their nod to Kashmir or something by Led Zeppelin. Like it had that kind of a vibe. And then I felt another vibe of Pink Floyd. The track The Death That Becomes Us. It has this very The Wall delay kind of effect going on there that David Gilmour would use for that opening riff. And I thought it was really kind of cool. Once again, I don't know if it's intentional or not. My ear hears weird things all the time, but regardless, if that was intentional, what a cool way to throw in some very out of left field influences and pull them into something like this.
I particularly like the strings because they didn't feel like just like an add-on. Like it isn't just like, all right, we have this riff, what can we do to pepper up the background and make it sound more epic or forlorn or whatever. They're really a part of the song, and the guitarists do a good job of harmonizing with them. Like, yeah, there's, you know, definitely some sections where it's just like a good kind of like broken down riff where you have the strings kind of taking the leads. But underneath that, there's also lead play that is harmonizing with the strings, and it works really well, especially on the chorus, because a good chunk of this, it feels like the cello really kind of takes like the lead, and then on the chorus, it gets bright, it gets soaring, and there's an awesome key change on the last chorus.
Yes.
Like, dude, all right, that was the appropriate key change to make it sound even bigger, even bolder, and yeah, absolutely just killed it.
It's an old school pop trick. You just go up to the next key, the right next key, and boom, And it adds a lot of power and it adds a lot of flavor. I guess another flavor that I heard in the title track, there is definitely, for you nerdy guitar players, there's a minor 9 progression, which for you non-guitar player people, if you've ever heard the song Floods, or if you've ever heard the song Message in a Bottle by the Police, those are minor 9th chords. They're very pretty, very beautiful, but also have this very cool, unique vibe. Everybody uses minor 9 chords, but my first thought went back to Floods, so.
As far as any negatives on here, there were a couple of tracks that I did think were, I don't know, a little fillerish, or, you know, I don't know, they didn't necessarily fit the vibe. While I do like the brighter, more epic soaring melodies on This Curse of Silence, this is where that power metal overlap kind of hits. And generally, I like those kind of melodies, just mostly in like classic heavy metal and power metal. You know, they kind of feel a little cheesy, and you get that weird contrast between Stan's very, you know, gruff, growling delivery on there, and then these soaring guitars that are setting out to conquer, I don't know, whatever, a kingdom or a dragon or wizard, whatever's spray painted on the van, I don't know. It doesn't necessarily work for me.
I didn't really have many gripes about this album either. I'll think of them more as reflections. So my first reflection was the first 4 or 5 songs, while I did enjoy them, they were more focused on the melody, and the heaviness took a little bit of a back seat, which was fine. But when we finally got to the track, What We Become, from there forward, I felt like the heaviness started to incorporate itself in. So those first couple tracks, while they were good, I really started to get into the album at What We Become, so on and so forth. Now, if you purchase the Digipack, you get 3 extra songs, and we listen to these 3 extra songs, and one of my gripes is kind of with one of the extra songs, so I'm not really going to include it into my ranking, but we just wanted to talk about it. There's a track on here called Become Surrender, and it is the last of the bonus tracks, and it almost sounds like the Mortal Kombat soundtrack reimagined. It's very techno metal, Rob Zombie-ish. It just wasn't my favorite flavor. Now, granted, I know that guys in certain old bands dipped their toes into those waters long ago, but it just wasn't for me, man. I wasn't crazy. I thought the best song of the 3 bonus tracks was the one that never made the first album.
Yeah, Path of Fierce Resistance. I think that's a banger, and honestly, I would have loved to have heard that included on the first one. But yeah, Become Surrender, yeah, honestly, what it reminded me of, and it's a side project / I guess supergroup, back in 2003 that Anders did, called Passenger, that I don't think anyone liked. I bought it, and I ended up not liking it. It was kind of his foray into groove metal, new metal, industrial metal. It wasn't good, and that kind of sounded like that. Like it just sounds like, again, soundtrack metal from the mid 2000s. That, you know, it's like, all right, we got an action movie or a horror movie. Let's get a heavier band. How heavy? Not that heavy, really.
Diet heavy.
But outside of that, honestly, I really dig this, and I again do think this is a stronger effort overall than the first one. So overall, I'm going to give this 4 stars. This is, you know, definitely a lot of nostalgia. I won't lie there. Like, a lot of this kind of brought me back to when I was really getting into melodic death metal, which was kind of around like 2002. And they execute the sound really well. Like, the production on here is fantastic. This is like Fascination Street Studios, Jens Bogren, you know, Tony Lindgren. They do a great job at this. They've been doing a great job at this style for a while. The drums sound rich. The guitars are nice and full. Everything is well balanced in the mix. Michael Stan still sounds incredible to this day. Everything on here is executed really well, and everything's very precise. It's very meticulous. Like, again, none of the songs kind of like overstay their welcome, and for the most part, they all deliver on the tropes that we love about melodeath. And there's still some fun experimentation in them overall. If you're a longtime fan of Howling in Flames, and you kind of long for In Flames to write In Flames material again.
Which we know you do.
We know you do. And, of course, like At the Gates, a little bit of hypocrisy here and there. And, I mean, Dark Tranquility. Yeah, check this out. This is really solid.
I couldn't agree more. I got to give this a 4 out of 5 as well. If you know anything about me, I love things that remind me of when I was young, and everything just was so excitable to me. And this is absolutely no exception. The only thing that might have made this album better is if Mr. Bjorn Gillette decided to come on and be would be the 6th member of this band, then I would really be in nostalgic heaven. But that's not going to happen. This is an excellent offering. I thought it was definitely an improvement in a lot of different areas from their first release. This brings all the elements of melodeath that I like. It's got the strong, epic melodies. It's got the great, strong guitar leads. It's got killer heavy riffs. Everything you could want is packed into this album, and it's done tastefully. It's never overdone. That's the other thing that I don't know if I really got to touch on too much, with Nick telling us, with all these songs being under 5 minutes, nothing ever really runs too long, or nothing ever really carries on too much. The album never gets boring to listen to. There's always a change going on, and never a bad change either. You know, it's always going into some new territory that is interesting to the ear. So, Rob Zombie metal aside, 4 out of 5. Let's get it.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They are only 99 cents, and our lone perk is doing a live members-only stream, which we will be doing sometime this month, and we're not sure if we're just going to do like a regular hangout stream, or we're actually going to talk about something. I'm going to put something up in the community and let you guys vote on it. We also have really stupid emojis, which I got to add more stupid emojis, because, I don't know, I feel like we're kind of overdoing the booger troll thing.
I have plenty of ideas, but he's just keeps not approving any of them because they all involve my wiener or my butt, and I'm sorry, that's just where my humor is. It's the toilet.
Yeah, no, 100%. No. It's 100% no is what I'm getting at before you get your hopes up. But yeah, this is the new way to support the channel more directly now. We're trying to get away from Patreon. And we still have our store, thrallsmetal.com, with our t-shirts and hats. That is linked down below. And again, if you would like to join and become a member of this channel, there's a join button right down there or here, someplace.
One of these twos.
Yeah.
And last but not least, thank you guys so much. You guys are the reason for the season, as I always say. You guys are what makes this worth it. Interacting with you, sharing opinions with each other, building this community. Thank you for each and every one of you that takes the time out of their day to watch our videos and support us. We can't tell you how much we appreciate that.
Even though we kind of are. But yeah, no, you guys mean the world to us. It's amazing doing this. We've been doing this for 6 years now. It's absolutely insane. And yeah, tons more coming, because eventually we're going to get more new releases. We got some more retro ideas and some discussions and such. So yeah, stay tuned. But yeah, one more big thank you, because you guys are awesome, and we will catch you later.